I don't know why we're talking about a taxi, guys, but you know what? It's been a while since I've taken a taxi. Last time I taken a taxi, it was when I got back from the airport. You know, usually you don't like take the taxi. You know, you take Uber, right? Most of us nowadays just have the Uber app. This is not sponsored though, but hey, Uber, if you want to sponsor me, please do just like click that button and sponsor me. There's a link, to get to me via email. Super easy. It's in the About section of the YouTube channel. So that's what I was saying. I was saying that literally I haven't taken the taxi except for when I get back to the airport of my place of residency. Meaning that if I'm going to the airport, I'm actually going to take my phone and go on Uber and order Uber. And then I'm just going to go there. But when you get back from, your trip, you're at the airport. And usually at the airport, what is there at the airport? There's a whole bunch of taxis. They're just there. They're waiting for you. So it's sometimes a bit easier to go with a taxi than a Uber. Some airports have Uber lineups, but in general, here in Vancouver, British Columbia, you can literally just bam, get out, take a cab. And it's a fixed rate. Meaning that depending on where you go, there's a map with colors and everything, and where in Greater Vancouver you go from the airport, which is located in Richmond, they just kind of bring you, to that place, and that costs you the price that is written on that really weird map. Okay, Snoopy says TV show. Danny DeVito, the guy that I put in my thumbnail. If you don't know who Danny DeVito is, maybe you're very, very young, because he was quite popular back in the day. Danny DeVito was famous in the 80s TV show called Taxi, not a literal taxi. Yeah, but why not talk about taxis? I mean, this is about cars, right? Which makes a lot of sense. So Danny DeVito was in a whole bunch of super interesting movies. Do you have names of those movies? I think so. He was in the TV show, but then he was wasn't he in he was in Twins, right? With Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was super cute. That was a super fun, literal movie. So they were twins that were lost at birth, and then they finally found each other again. But I mean, come on, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. You couldn't have more non-conjoint twins. So this was cute. So what's your favorite Danny DeVito movie? Come on, drop in the comment, because I'm Piper and you're listening to the podcast that brings you EV entertainment and information. It's called While You Wait, because while you wait for your electric vehicle to charge, we are here from Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. That is Vancouver Pacific time. But don't worry, if ever you miss it, you can play it whenever you are recharging your electric vehicle. Woohoo! Super mega easy. So as I was saying, taxis. The taxis are not really a thing right anymore. I mean, I'm pretty sure the taxi industry is going a bit down. Well, just because of Uber, for one, and all these other car share things. Like here we have Modo, we have Evo. Some people are choosing to just take something like that. Yeah.
Imagine with the Elon.
Exactly. So imagine in a few years with Elon Musk's robot taxi, this is definitely gonna make sure that people cannot work as taxi cab drivers, because these robot taxi or robo taxi, they're going to be fully autonomous, meaning you're just going to be able to go in one like you would go into public transports a little bit, and be a passenger in them without them being any drivers or anything of that sort. Imagine that. So definitely gonna make a pretty steep, thing for taxi cabs. But don't worry, that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about the untold story of the GM EV1 and how it affected, just the electric vehicles in the world, especially right now. There's so many cool things about the EV1 that we're going to talk about in this podcast. I listened to a YouTube video, and then, if you have some insights, because people in the live comment sections keep on bringing on the EV1. I know it's not one of these subjects where we're like, oh yeah, haters, and let's talk about pollution and ICE vehicles, but quite frankly, or Donald Trump. Yeah. It's not one of these podcasts, but what is really, really interesting with the EV1 is what you will learn in this podcast. And I really think that without the EV1, we would probably not have had any electric vehicles. Not at all. Well, not a resurgence, or not the newer models that we have now. Because yes, when in the beginning of the time we invented the vehicle, just like the normal car, like the automobile, there was as many like electric vehicles as there were some ICE vehicles. So gas vehicles. But then stuff happened, and so the electric vehicle kind of died off. But we're going to do another podcast on this subject. Don't worry, we're doing podcasts on all the subjects, okay? But that being said, well, the EV1 really kind of brought it back in my generation, let's say it like that. Even though I was a child when that thing came out, like really, really small child. RP says $25,000 for a Robo Roadster. It's not a roadster though. It's a taxi. It's a taxi. Imagine the one that's in space. I don't know how much that one would cost you to bring back. But you get a robot with it. So it's like a 2-for-1, right? Maybe that's the cool point about the robot taxi is that, well, I don't know what's going to happen. And Elon Musk is supposed to announce the robo taxi in August 8, 2024. So there you have it. You decide if you want to be there for that announcement or not. But I think it's definitely going to change a lot of the things that we have in our environment right here, right now, especially in the US and in Canada. Then if you are somewhere else in the world, well, I'm not sure how it will affect you. But since this podcast is recorded live at 12 p.m. from Monday to Friday in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, well, this is something that affects us kind of directly. RP says everyone's going to bring up that the EV1 was only leased and they canceled it, but at least, hey, they produced an EV1 when no one else was. It's a good point. It's a good point. So we'll go into the history because I know some of you are history buffs. Some of you who aren't, well, now's your chance to get good grades in history. Plus, I mean, come on. We're talking about cars. What's not fun about cars? Okay, let's dive right into the subject. Since everybody's here and at the time of recording this podcast, we are Monday. I know some of you don't want to be at work, so make sure you tune in. Yeah, the podcast playlist is called While You Wait. Make sure you click on it, you bookmark it, keep it somewhere close. That way you can always press that play button and listen or watch. Yeah, because, I mean, I am supported by a video feed. If ever you want to see my face, it's totally possible. And it's free, right? Because it's on YouTube.
Why didn't you do EV2?
Why didn't they do EV2? I'm going to talk about that. They actually did two models. Was it
called EV2?
No, it was called Gen 2. It's kind of confusing. Yeah, so it's very confusing. GM, call us if you know something about this. I mean, come on, call us. Mr. General Motors, I would like to talk to you. Dial 1-888-214. Don't dial that. That's not my number right now. No, I don't know who owns this number, but hey, whatever. Context and history.
Use 555.
Yeah, just 555-555-555-555-5. Plus that means in Thailandese. Super easy. Chris Pankage says it's Mrs. Mary Barra. Isn't that one of the characters of Howard Stern, right? Like, is that it? Or maybe not. I'm not sure. I hope it is. Or else I have no clue. I have nothing else. That was my only guess. I'm stopping right there. So what is the EV1? The EV1 was produced by GM. Oh, Mary Barra is the CEO of GM. Oh, it's a woman now. It's a girl.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, she's badass. Okay. Okay. Cool. But they still kind of killed the EV1, which is weird because they were in advance, like for everybody. They were the first company to make the electric car. They were, and then they killed the project. So yes, this is a spoiler, but don't worry, we'll get to the how. This is more about the road, people. It's not the getting there. It's the road.
Yahoo was first, but Google.
Exactly. So Yahoo was first, but Google won. It's the same thing. So let's say that GM is like Yahoo, and then Tesla is totally Google. Tesla's dominating. Plus, I've got some special information for you at the end of this podcast related some things that made it so that actually GM and EV1 made it possible for Tesla to exist nowadays. Yeah. There's like a super cool little bridge there. Yeah. That if that would have never happened, probably we would have never seen Tesla happen ever. So that's why I'm saying that like the EV1 really made a big difference in the whole entire world. And since we are on the podcast and the channel, well, podcast while you wait channel, Two Girls, One Electric Car, we cannot not talk about the EV1. It's just impossible. So yes, it was the first electric car. Now, okay, that is debatable. You can tell me, Piper, in 1905, like what, we had electric cars. Yeah, but that's just in modern terms, you know, not modern art, but in like, you know, when we had GPSs. Okay, that type of car is the first electric car. And do you know how long it took to develop this beautiful technological improvement? You can guess now. Yeah. Put in the live comment section. Put in a comment. Tell your wife, your friend. 5 years? No, longer. Price is Right rule. Yeah, longer. 10 years. It took 10 years. 10 years to actually develop the EV1. Imagine this. And it was not called EV1 at first. What?
What was it called?
Well, I'm going to tell you what it was called. Be patient. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Okay, so what happened? What happened is like every, car manufacturers, GM had some side hustles. Yeah, GM invested money in some, you know, crazy guys that were developing crazy test cars or, you know, these like model cars. Yeah, these prototypes that don't really exist in real life. But so they do competitions like this, and they did a competition with one solar car. And this competition brought them to develop some crazy technology. And what happened? They won the competition. I know. So that meant that they became like overly confident. You know, just like the people that created the Titanic, they were overconfident because one of them did not sink. So they think that all the other ones were unsinkable. Well, a bit like the same thing. So GM was like, what, bro? We can make a car that beats all the other cars. Though it was kind of solar and it was a weird prototype car, it still won the race with all the new technology they put into it. So they decided to take all this technology and make the first electric car. But it was just a test car. It was not yet a so it's a test car. So it's kind of like a prototype. But there's a possibility for it to go on market. You know, sometimes prototypes are too crazy. You'll never put a prototype on the market unless you're like crazy or you have a rich billionaire who wants to buy it.
It's not a prototype.
No, it's a test car. It was made so that they could mass sell it later. More in that type of time frame, mass produce. So in 1990, they decided to create the impact car.
That's not a good name.
That's a really bad name, right, for a car? It's like, yeah, I had an impact with my impact.
How's the crash test on that?
How's the crash test on that? Yeah, how's the crash test? No idea. I don't have this data, but if you do, make sure you Google it and put it in a comment. We want to know what's the data on the impact. So that was the first GM electric test car. It was called the Impact. Maybe because they thought it would make an impact on the market and not because it would crash into anything it saw. That would make a lot more sense. But still, come on, GM.
The best name GM got is the Volt.
Yeah, Volt was great name. Volt was great name. Great name. Plus, it's Chevy, but it's owned by GM. We all understand. But still, Volt was good.
Volt. Chevy Volt.
Chevy Volt. Chevy Volt. Even Bolt is pretty good. But Volt was better. I agree, Volt was better. We will talk about the Chevrolet Volt because it is in the near future of GM, but they don't yet know it because we're still in 1990 at the time. We're still in 1990. So the actual EV1 was not an EV1 yet. It was called the Impact Car. All right. So let's get into what the F is an impact car. Is it a crash car? What does it do? What is the impact car? Okay, so let me give you some specs because I know you're guys, right? So let's do specs. I mean, RP is already saying that the EV interior looks cool, lots of buttons. Yeah, we're talking 1990s, so indeed. But you're too far ahead. Come on, come back. We're just at the Impact. That's before the EV1. So the Impact had a lead acid battery. What does that mean? It means we don't do that anymore. That's what it means. We don't. We tried to reduce lead. there was a lot of lead in gasoline at the beginning of like the gasoline vehicles, and they even had studies that showed that people were more violent due to the lead in the gasoline and the emanations. Now, please fact check me on this, but this is like a weird fact I saw somewhere, and I was like, wow, I need to reuse that, and now's the time, so you're so lucky. The thing is, the impact car, we're talking about the impact car. This is the podcast called While You Wait for Your EV to Charge. We're talking about General Motors EV1, which happened in the 1990s. Yeah, so if you were a child, a teenager, or an actual driving adult, you might recall this vehicle and how it really changed the whole entire ecosystem for electric vehicle. Now, the thing is, it had a really simple motor because they weren't really advanced. Like, that was the first electric vehicle. So they just kind of took whatever they had and stuck it together, right? Plus, the drivetrains were also very simple and not adapted to the electric motor and the electricity at all. It was still pretty it was still pretty technologically advanced, but like the parts were not necessarily made for that. You know, it's like when you got a car and you don't want to buy like the original piece because you know it's too expensive. So you go to a garage and you tell the guy, yeah, can you just like grab another piece, like one other piece, and kind of make it fit, you know? Yeah, can you just weld it? Yeah. So there's a name for that. I don't remember what that name is because I knew it in French, but since, you know, I'm not an Anglophone, there's a name for these pieces that you can get and just put on any car, but they're not great. And sometimes they break or you need to kind of weld them on, which is not good. It's not good. So I'm not saying that's what they did, but I don't know. I'm not a mechanic or an engineer. So there's a possibility. Yeah, in French, it's jobé. So it's like, it means like I worked it out. Yeah, that's not something you want to hear on your Porsche, right? maybe on your GM. I don't know. I worked it out. There, I fixed it. There's like duct tape everywhere, you know. But okay. We're talking about a test car, right? We're not talking yet about a real car. It's not mass market. Nobody's driving it except from special people that are there doing their thing. Aftermarket or retrofit? Yes, but no. I don't think it's retrofit because yeah, no, but retrofit is too cute. And retrofit is really if you can't find that piece because your car is too old. Your car is new. We're talking your car is new, you just don't have the money. So you go to a garage and you take another really cheap, kind of same but different car piece. So retrofit is way better than what I'm saying right now. Now, the thing is, the impact car made from GM, that was the test car and the concept car kind of for the EV1. You know, it wouldn't even go to 60 miles per hour. So that was a bit of a problem. So they used to do, like, when we test cars nowadays, especially, well, EVs.
The highway 60 miles?
Exactly. So from 1 to 100 kilometers in Canada, that's how we calculate. So how fast can you get there? No, you couldn't. Well, you could, but you would go, like, if a 60 miles per hour was too fast. They wouldn't go that fast. So how they calculated the 0 to 60 miles per hour, like in how many seconds can you get to that? They would calculate 0 to 30 miles per hour because you couldn't get the 60. So they split it in half, you know, to have a guy mat. Yeah, to have a real conversion, which makes a lot of sense.
They invented guy mat.
Maybe they invented Gaiman. Maybe that's what GM did with the 0 to 30 miles per hour ratio for how fast your EV would go. Again, it was the first EV. There was no competition. It was the only one. So, I mean, 0 to 30 is still pretty good. Then we have how we would just tune in universal parts, or you could say the parts were bodged to fit. That's exactly it. And then Snoopy says the old-fashioned battery lasts longer. The one that you can add more distilled water to lasts at least 10 years more. I have no idea about this, but thank you for sharing, Snoopy. I don't know how these old batteries worked. Chris Pankage says EV1 still use the lead acid batteries, I believe. Well, that's what we're going to talk about, Chris. So the thing is, the Impact did develop kind of the lead acid batteries. And then, well, okay, so that's how it became to be. That's how they created the very first electric car. Even though the Impact was not a market car, okay? It all began with them winning this kind of solar race, which is like really, really interesting. So give me a moment. I'm going to talk to you about how that how that came to be, what happened there, and what made it possible. So I just need to note this down. Okay. So they won this solar race with this like complete prototype car, but what they did to win this solar race is they went a bit out of the box. So they used rare metals, that they hadn't used before. Okay, so I guess that's what made them the idea to create probably the lead battery on the impact car. And then also, well, what they did, they improved the electronics, which we're talking 1990, right? So you still had a bit of like intelligent stuff going on. Like people had like these big brick cell phones, television was a thing, fax machines, calculator watches. The first computers were there, and they're like office computers were there. Mass market internet, we can say a little bit later. Okay, maybe what, 1996? 1996, the internet.
You could use like
some kind of internal, right, communication with your neighbor. What's your neighbor? So the electronics actually improved the motor. Yeah, so they figured a way to make it so that the motor and the electronics would talk to each other, which is pretty revolutionary. But at the same time, I mean, they did send Apollo to space. So that's kind of like probably, same technology. What's in your iPhone right now? Okay, what made the impact vehicle? Yes, it's a car. Okay, people, it's a car. So amazing compared to all the other vehicles. I'm gonna get into that in a second. But because people are like going crazy in the live comment section, let's just like give them a little bit of a shout out. So RP says EV1 started with lead acid batteries that could carry about 65 miles in typical driving. Later version of the EV1 battery could do more than 100 miles. Yeah, we will talk about that a little bit later, about the real specs of the EV1. But yeah, that is, and it was fully electric, right? It was not an hybrid, it was not a generator, it was fully electric. Snoopy says, better off using a camping generator for long distance in one of those cars. Well, okay, so we're talking like 1990s, and we are talking like the beginning of everything, right?
There's a dude that put a generator on his Tesla.
Yeah.
So he can charge with gas.
And
it worked.
And it worked.
Yeah, right.
Because,
Trial and error, but he
yeah.
put a generator big enough to generate power while he drives. So he was running at zero.
Okay, so that's like so somebody did a Chevy Volt with their Tesla. So what they did is they literally took a generator, gas generator, plugged it to the battery of the Tesla in a way that I do not recommend you DIY, okay? Unless you're like a mechanical engineer or some things like that. And then, well, that made it possible for him to drive, well, run on gas, pretty much. It's like you convert an electric car to a gas vehicle, a gas generator vehicle. Yeah, YouTube is amazing, right? You can find anything, even our podcast, which you can find whenever you want, wherever you want. Just go click the podcast playlist, 2 Girls, 1 Electric Car, because while you wait for your electric vehicle to charge or for it to be reconverted into a freaking gas car, well, listen in. Fax machine has been around since the 1870s. Yeah, and before that, the Morse code. I know, great. Lead batteries have been around since the 1800s. Well, thank you for all these fact-checking points. This is amazing. Yeah, the first electric car was the same kind of battery. Again, I think it's... well, this is what they invented first. It was still batteries that we have, right? But the thing is, the most important part was that the battery was communicating with the whole system through like electronics and mechanics together, like a software. Let's call it like that, a sort of software. Now, what about GM Impact? Well, that's what we're talking about, RP. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the Impact, because the Impact is the little brother or sister of the EV1. Without no, the bigger sister. Well, okay, the parent, whatever. Without the Impact, this has been adopted, whatever. Without the actual GM Impact, there would be no EV1. Like, the GM Impact is the EV1 before release, pretty much. That's why we're talking about. To keep the price down, it made sense to use parts you already had rather than fabricating them for a specific purpose. That's really true, Aoi, and we'll get to that a bit later, but there is like a huge amount of R&D that had to be inputted in that. And I guess that they kind of did some of that R&D with the prototype solar car that they use in that competition. So some of it was already done. But then when they decided to really fabricate the impact car, like the first electric vehicle, they really had to put in more money and more time and get like these awesome people that would work on it. RP says it's a popular myth that electric cars running out of power leave people stranded. They had to use gas generator. Told me by a AAA driver. I mean, I don't know back in the day what they would do to do it. I know I've seen some YouTubers who, yes, have had either a spare battery pack or a generator to plug in their Teslas or Rivians or whatever. But yeah, what do you do for clicks? Because seriously, just color towing is just like having no gas on the highway. Why would you do that? Why would you have no gas on the highway? You know when you need a tank, just go tank or fuel or recharge in that way. AAA battery drivers.
Okay, I want to vote.
Yeah, okay, what's the poll?
Okay, I want to vote. Have you ever ran out of gas?
Have you ever ran out of gas?
Yes or no?
Yes or no? So that would be kind of the same as running out of electricity. Exactly. This is people. Okay, I'm Piper. Thank you for tuning in. Oh yeah. Okay. Let me get back. Yeah.
Yes, no, why?
Oh, it's too late. This is too late. But yeah, that would have been good. Why? Why did you do that? You had no more money. Usually it's because you have no more money. You put like $5 and you were like, I'm gonna get there.
Yeah,
but
because I didn't have one.
Exactly, it happens to everybody because they don't have money. It never happened to me. I have.
If you had an electric car, you could always guerrilla charge somewhere.
You can. Is that a thing?
Not guerrilla.
You can guerrilla suction gas, but I mean, that's stealing, right? No, you don't steal electricity, right? This is guerrilla. Same, but different. Okay. Let's get back to the subject in hand. We are talking about the impact, which led to the actual fabrication of the EV1. Yes, GM's EV1, the first ever electric car. So one of the really interesting things that these like super amazing people did is that instead of having an electric car be low voltage like all the other ones before, they put it high voltage. Danger, high voltage. But the thing is, it was alternating current. So I have no idea what that means, but I think it means like you put it high. Yeah, Nikola Tesla called us. What does this mean? But it just like made it more efficient. So if there's anything you need to like understand about this, is having high voltage but alternating current made it a lot more efficient than having low voltage all the time for some reason. Now Snoopy says he never ran out of gas. Well, that's great. And Chris Pankage says they do that today to dead Teslas in California. A service with a van and a Honda generator comes to you. I mean, that makes sense. If it's too dead, Tesla says that you should not plug it. You need to kind of boost it. If you really go down that zero threshold of your Tesla, you need to call them and they're going to tell you what to do. It's like there's a special thing to do, like special code. Like, you know, because there's a chance it's not going to start back if you just plug it in, because all the not fuel cells, sorry, but all the battery cells are just empty. So there's a way to put it back in, but I don't know how because I'm not an engineer. Okay. So also, well, when we were saying that at the beginning, the impact, like the first one, it was not great. But because of all the R&D and all the money they were putting into it, they find a more complex driving train, meaning a more complex way to make the car advance. So we're talking front-wheel drive instead of whatever that was. But I'm not sure if it was propulsion or not before, but the thing is, compared to the solar car they had before, and then what they did to the impact car is that they had to figure out a way, again, for the battery to give that energy, so the electric motor, to give that energy to the wheels so that it would be more efficient, right? And not lose as much of whatever it was. So, plus, okay, the main thing is that it cost a lot of money to translate the DC into AC. And that was a big thing. So that was a big thing. They had to translate DC into AC. So yes, Edison and Tesla fought on that one again. It happens a lot in history, right? AC, DC. Yeah, Edison, you got my number right. I mean, you're not the guy that invented the phone, but come on, you invented electricity. That's pretty good. Close enough. Testing and public response. Yeah. So what do people think of the actual impact car. And now the impact is, well, I mean, it's not yet on the market, okay? But it's getting there. They're starting to be like, hey guys, you want to test this new car we just fabricated, okay? So that's the thing. They actually tested it in 1994. So we know it all started in 1990, right? So they were developing for like 10 years. And then in 1994, they were like, okay, we're going to select 50 people that are going to be able to drive the impact car. Yeah, the GM impact car. They're going to take them home and they're going to drive them for 1 week or 2 weeks. And they're going to tell us what they think about it. Now, the thing is, they had to select candidates that had garages. Why? Because they had to put in the charging equipment. Yeah, for these cars, because the impact car was an EV car. So what they did is they were like, okay, people, you want an impact car? Perfect, call us. Yeah, it was in 1994, right? So you couldn't text. The thing is, they opened, like, I don't know, a phone line. Like, they had a whole floor of people, like telemarketers that were not telemarketing right now. And they would answer calls. You know how many calls they got? They got 10,000 calls just from the LA area, and they got 14,000 calls from the New York City area, because that's where they wanted to test the actual impact car. But they only wanted to give it to 50 people, so that's a lot of people to choose from. So they had a market. So they saw that, like, there was really a public interest. They closed the phone lines because they're like, oh my God, we're getting too many phone calls. Our bill's going to cost us way too much. So they just closed it. And, well, that was a good thing, because that meant that people were really, really attracted to this new car that was, again, totally electric in 1994.
I think, again,
yeah,
the fact that if you have a garage, and they call.
Yeah, if you have a garage.
You can plug yourself a car. I think this is a...
The accessibility of having an electric vehicle in your garage that you can plug in, so it's always fully charged. So yeah, you never go to the gas station. This is really cool. And you live in the city, right? Yeah. So you live in the city.
You work and you come back.
And yeah, you go to work, you come back. It's for we're talking city commutes, okay? And we're gonna get into the specs of the car. So positive media coverage was great. People saw it as a possible family car that you could use for, again, city, work life, weekdays. Maybe not weekends, but weekdays. Not for long road trips, because we were not there yet, okay? But close to that. So that's what the public thought of the impact car in 1994. I know. We're like, well, we're going that far, Piper. We need to go that far to come back to performance and design. So what is the impact car? What does it do? Okay, so when I told you that before, what happened with the electric vehicles is that actually... like the impact car, they wouldn't even test the speed at 0 to 60 miles per hour because it didn't go 60 miles per hour like the first test car. It didn't. It was too beginning, but they modified one. And its land speed record was 183 miles per hour.
It worked.
So it worked. So they wanted to make sure that people knew that it was like a real car, So I think they started investing more into making it like, okay, we're going to compete with real gasoline vehicles now, not just have something different.
Is it why all the car commercials are fast? Is it that because it's always a thing? Fast car.
Of course it's a fast car. How fast can you get there, right? That's what a car is about.
Car because it's fast.
Always selling a car because it's fast. Then there's security, you have a family, a baby in it. But in general, a car needs to be fast. It's always from 0 to 60 miles per hour. How fast does it take to get there? If it's 3 seconds, you never go fast. Why would you go fast? You're going to get a ticket. A speeding ticket, so you don't. But you have the possibility. Yes, if you have the possibility is very sellable. Like totally sellable. So the thing is, let's get into all the problems of the impact. Okay, so this test car that GM developed before they actually developed the EV1. Big problem was, of course, the range. I mean, we're talking first EV ever. So the range was bad. And, well, it it took a long time to recharge. So same problems that we were seeing with electric vehicles and that we're still seeing people be afraid of is always range and how long does it take to charge. Most people here on the channel know this, and that's why Two Girls One Electric Car brings you this podcast from Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. Vancouver time. Oh yeah, make sure you click it or you listen to it whenever, wherever, doesn't matter. The podcast playlist is there, and while you wait for electric vehicle to charge or for your lunch break to be over while you're not working because you're on your lunch break, we're here to entertain you, so make sure you click on it. So what happened is like these concerns, you know, this limited range, the long recharge time, those were not good selling points to put this car on the market as it was. And then what were the special design features? Yeah. Because we're going technology, right? You have a battery in there that weighs 500... I think it was like close to 533 kilos. That is huge. So you need to compensate in other places to make sure that the car is actually lighter. Because the lighter it is, the more you're going to keep that battery for range and not just for pulling that car. So they developed an aluminum frame, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, even Tesla has an aluminum chassis.
You need to, because the battery's so, I just realized.
Yeah, the battery's so heavy that you need to compensate for the car to be less heavy everywhere else, except for the battery. And then, well, they even put plastic body panels, meaning they were really trying to be like, okay, let's cut this down as much as we can. And they used lightweight magnesium. Now, I thought magnesium was highly flammable, so I don't know why they did that, but...
Because when I used to do motorcycle,
Yeah.
I used to buy magnesium gear.
Ah! So, okay, on...
Lighter, but it
erodes faster? Okay, so magnesium is lightweight, but it erodes faster, which makes sense. If it's lighter weight, it's maybe less dense, so it makes a lot of sense. So, lightweight magnesium alloy wheels to make the wheels like way less heavy, so that, well, this car would just, you know, drive faster. Okay, you want to talk about drag coefficiency, because I know some people said it in there. RP says the BMW i3 has plastic body panels. So see, I guess it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You need to save some space. But we're talking kilos, people. We're talking kilos.
What friend would you like to carry in your bag? Don't answer that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think they heard. Oh, Chris Pankage says Saturn's inherits the plastic from the EV1.
Oh, yes.
Interesting. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it was bought by BN. So the drag coefficient on the Impact GM was 0.19. Now they needed to make sure that, the drag, so that means like how heavy the car is and how can it like carry itself, was that. So I think there's a lot more. You can Google that and check for your own vehicle. Was the drag coefficient, especially in EVs, it's important because, well, you really want to maximize that.
Cybertruck.
Just like the Cybertruck.
Don't give up.
Yeah, no, Cybertruck was like stainless steel, bitch.
Yeah, but, no drag. It's like,
Yeah.
never mind that.
No.
Let's put more batteries.
Let's put more batteries. Let's just put everything else in there. Bulletproof. Yeah. Also, horsepower on this baby, the Impact 1994 from GM, had 137 horsepower. I mean, it's pretty good, right? It's not great, but we're talking like this is the first EV ever. That's not even... give them a chance. Yeah, just be cool. Be cool. Regulations. Okay. So we're gonna go there. We're not gonna do who killed the electric car. We're gonna do that later. It's still in my podcast. I need to watch a movie and do it properly, okay? But the thing is, some people do say that the EV1 was killed. And why do they say that? Well, we're gonna go into this subject right here, right now. It's somewhat, but not. We're not using that word. We're not using that word. So the thing is, well, there is something called the CARB, which is the California Air Resource Board. And these guys were like, oh, GM, you created an impact test car. It's all electric. This is so cool. Why wouldn't all the 7 biggest car companies or automakers in America, we're talking United States of America, now be able to produce 2% of their newer vehicle models? Well, in electric vehicles. If you guys can do it, everybody can do it. So we're just gonna put a law, and this law is gonna be that 2% of new vehicles sold by the 7 top automakers have to be EV, or like emission-free vehicles. Let's call it like that. So this law was put into place by California, the state of California. And GM was like, okay, well, I mean, we're already developing the impact. So it was like the chicken and the egg, you know? California did that because the impact, and then the impact started like producing this EV1, possibly because of the California law. So it's just kind of intertwined, right, in that way. So let's get deeper into this. Now, GM is a big company, and it was an old company. I mean, it's been around for like 80 years approximately, back in 1994 or within that realm. It's been there for a while. It's doing okay. But the thing is, developing this actual impact test car, this new EV, was costing them a lot of money in research and development. And a lot of money in research and development, let's do a little bit of finance here, equals a lot less profit. And a lot less profit, what does that mean? That means that your stock drops. So big companies don't really like to do that, right? They don't like for their stock to drop, and they don't like to lose profit, which makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, when you're investing in R&D, which is research and development, you're investing in your future. So you can't always just invest in the present. Big companies like this need to think a little bit ahead if they want to stay in the game, which GM, well, you know, did not. But okay, right now they were still in the game. They were investing all this money in R&D. They were losing profit, and yes, their stock was going down, which was not that great for them. So what was happening is that even though they had this kind of electric vehicle, GM was selling gasoline vehicles. That was the main thing of GM. Always has been the main thing of GM. So GM decided to hire, I guess, a few lawyers. If I explain it to myself like I'm 5 years old and I don't know nothing about law, to be opposed to what the CARB, so the California Air Resources Board, was putting into a law, or like legislations and all that. So GM was like going against the CARB, saying that no, we don't want electric vehicles to be produced. We don't want 2% of all of our new vehicles to have to be sold as zero emission. It's going to cost us too much money. So as much as GM was developing this EV, they were also militating against that legislation, which is, it's just kind of funny, right? Like really kind of funny. Yeah, GM has been around since 1908. Well, you see, that makes sense. So in 1990, it was about, 80 years old. Well, okay, 82. And then 1994, you know, a little bit like that. So GM was like totally opposed to doing electric vehicles, but at the same time they were the only company, or one of the first companies back then, developing an electric vehicle, which is kind of confusing. But even though they were militating against the CARB, they were still developing what was now the EV1. The moment you've been waiting for. Yes, the EV1 on the market. So let's talk about this. The EV1 on the market. Yeah. So you have the real backstory of how it all came to be. Now, GM won this competition/race with a solar vehicle that they had invested a lot of money in, and all of this technology they decided that they could took and put into making a test car that was going to be fully electric, called the Impact, because it was going to make an impact. I hope that's why they called it like that, because that would have been too weird. So we talked about the Impact and all of that, but now it was time to produce the real car, the car that they would literally sell to people. Okay, sell is a big word because that's not how the story goes. But they did that. They had finally made the first electric vehicle from that time. Okay, don't freak out. Okay, so they released the EV1 in 1996. Yay! I was so young, I don't remember. But the thing is, they released it back then, and they released it in a quite special way. So the thing is, they would not sell it to you. No. GM wanted to keep full ownership of these vehicles for I don't know what or how many reasons, but if you have an idea, make sure that you leave a comment because we love to read your comment in the live comment section. What?
I think it was just so new, so everything, so if they sell it, they cannot like retake it. I think it was all
Less trouble, right?
less trouble.
It was less trouble. Plus, you kind of keep. It's not like it's kept on. Yeah, it's kind of kept under warranty if it stays as a lease. So GM still owns these vehicles, and if something goes wrong, they can just retake them and do whatever they want with them, which pretty much happened, right? Okay, so what happened is. Now, the EV1 was pretty expensive to lease, even to lease. Like, from back then, a Honda was $230 per month, and the EV1 was closer to, like, I think $500 per month. So that's, like, almost double the price. Plus, they selected a few people, which you would say were influencers back then. So the influencers of back then, meaning celebrities, TV hosts, actors, singers, whatever, to be the faces or to test these EVs. Now again, they needed people that would really test them, but also that had the mean to pay for that lease, which was like double the average price of a car back then. And well, they needed to have a place to put the charging infrastructures in, which was a kind of a wall mount in your garage, just like EVs nowadays. So they selected a few special fews. And Danny DeVito was one of them. There was a lot more actors and celebrities. If you know somebody that had an EV1 back then and was one of these special few firsts, like, you know, like they do in the comment section first, well, please share in a comment, because while you wait for your electric car to be developed by General Motors, we are here to entertain you on Two Girls One Electric Car. Make sure you tune in whenever you want, wherever you want. The podcast playlist stays available to you on YouTube. All you need is internet to listen in whenever you're waiting for your lunch to be ready or you're waiting for your taxi to come. It doesn't matter. As long as you're waiting, well, you can always have some fun with us. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the thing is, now, this EV1 was out. It was pretty revolutionary. And GM wanted to sell it. As much as they were going against California for imposing that 2% of vehicles sold were zero emission, they put $8 million into producing advertisement for the EV1. And if you were there back then, the EV1 ads were pretty cute. It was like all electronic devices like going near the car because it was an electric car, right? So it's like your toaster would like love it. Yeah. It was really cute. So that's one of the ads that were there, but they spent a lot of money. Plus, well, all of these, I guess, public figure endorsements. So Danny DeVito and other really celebrated actors having the EV1. Just, it's like influencers getting free products and things like that. It's the same thing. They were the influencers of the time. So that's what they did. That being said, they did pull out their ads at one point. They stopped doing ads for many reasons that we'll get into in a second, so don't go anywhere. Make sure you like while you're here. If you're listening to the video format, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, because when you subscribe, usually you are informed when we go live, and you want to be there when we're live. It's way more engaging and way more fun to leave live comments while we are live. This is such a tongue twister. So you know that one of the cinematographers that was on Star Trek Voyager, yeah, that guy. Well, when they pull out all the commercials for the EV1 and that GM was kind of sort of thinking of pulling it out, well, he decided that he was going to do a radio commercial for it. So he took $20,000 of his own pockets, and he made a commercial. GM was not so happy about it at the time because they did not want to be like associated to that, because they thought they wanted to kill the EV, but they weren't sure. Like, public didn't know. They just didn't know. So that being said, I mean, this is really how the people who had the EV1 were really satisfied of the EV1. They loved the product so much. All these early adopters wanted it to get bigger. But that's where the problem is. So the EV1 was a limited production. They made 288 cars and they were almost handmade. Okay, so it wasn't like mass produced like the other cars GM would make. And that meant it cost a lot of money to make, but also like just the fact that it was handmade. So in their first year, they made 288 vehicles that, yes, were leased, but it's still like, it's not that much or that many cars compared to what we can do today. And again, maybe just because people did not want it. So you spend $8 million and you do 288 cars. I don't think you get back your money, you know. not in that way. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so here Chris Pankage says it's possible they were not crash tested properly. Prototypes to crash are expensive. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because every time you scrap a car.
Every time you demolish a car, literally. Insurance and EAP cleanup was another reason to keep control of it. Okay, thank you, Chris. Now, Snoopy says battery poisoning the ground if they crashed, I guess, was a main concern.
I don't think it was.
Well, I mean, even not enough crashes on the highway. There's 288 cars. Like, even if they all crashed at the same time at the same place, I'm not sure it would be like that much of a biohazard issue.
BP oil spill.
BP oil spill was way worse. Or even just putting a gas station somewhere like contaminates the soil right away. Hey, Walter Johnson, thank you for tuning in. And Chris Pankage says Alexandra Pohl was another high-profile celebrity at the time that was in tears when hers was taken. We will get to the taken part very soon. Don't go anywhere, I'ma find you.
We have a dad joke.
No, we don't have a dad joke. No, I need to Google one, do something with it, or this is too many things to do. I'm on my own right now, people. I'm on my own. Okay, so now let's get to Bam Bam Bam. Wow, this is like a long podcast. I have like so much. EV1 Generation and Improvement. So like we were saying, EV1 had actually two models. What? We thought there was only the EV1. No, there was not just EV1. So EV1 in the EV1 model made two. So there was Generation 1 and Generation 2. What differentiates them? So the Gen 2 came in 1999. It was like the last batch to be released right before everything ended. So Generation 1 is the one that we talked about, like lead battery, all of that things that we're taking from the Impact car. So it's just kind of copy paste of the Impact car, minor or less. But in 1999, they switched some stuff. It was not a lead battery anymore. It was a nickel metal hydride battery, which make this battery a lot less heavier. Yeah, 80 kilos less heavy, meaning that extended the range from 80 miles to 140 miles. Again, that's ideal conditions. We all know how that works. But still, that's really interesting. Plus, since all of these, EV1s were leased by GM, what they did is that they literally took these Generation 1, these Gen 1, and they retrofitted them. So yes, they did change the battery, a bit like BYD wants to do with their electric vehicles nowadays. For you to actually have this kind of battery change included in the price of your vehicle. So that's what they did. They changed the battery of the Gen 1 to the Gen 2 battery, making it better, which is kind of a really cool thing to do, if you ask me, especially back in the 1990s, like 1999. And then, that's when it all goes south, right? Are you ready for this? Some people are gonna cry. Are you okay? Douglas Downless says EV1 estimated cost for GM $80,000 to $100,000 per car. They were losing $50K on every car. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. We're going there. The end of the EV1. I know that went by so fast, huh? Whoa.
I have a dad joke.
You have a dad joke? Perfect. We're going to do the dad joke at the end. So the end of the EV1. What happened? So after building only 1,107 units. Yeah, so they built 1,117 cars. That's it. Gen 1, Gen 2 altogether. And they decided that they would terminate all leases as of 2002. Yes. So everybody who had a EV1 had to give it back by 2002. Like 2002. Yeah, that time. Why did they do that? A lot of things. Yes, they were losing money. This car was costing them way too much to produce. And so they did it. They pulled the plug on it. Plus, they plugged the plug. That's good. That's a good joke, right? They pulled the plug on the EV1. There was a lot of controversy on that because they were still militating and like paying lawyers to go against the CARB, right? The California Air Resource thing, and they kind of won that. So California took off that law of all the 7 biggest automakers to have to make zero emission vehicles. They took it off. So what did they do with these cars? Yes, they destroyed them. So they got all of the EV1s back and they destroyed all of them except for 50. Yeah, 50 of them went to museums and only one of them is still functioning, and that's the one at the Smithsonian Museum, because the Smithsonian said we will not take a car that does not work, because all the other ones were kind of unplugged, but not just unplugged, they were like deactivated, so you couldn't use them anymore. They're really just there to be there. But the Smithsonian was like, we take it in integrity or we don't take it. So the one at the Smithsonian is the only working one, for what I know, which is really interesting. And then that created so much controversy that this one guy, Chris Payne, did a documentary, which is called Who Killed the Electric Car? And this was really, really to talk about the EV1 and go in depth on what happened. Now, what is the influence of the EV1 on today's world? I know, we want to know, Piper, we want to know. So, I mean, EV1 really, really affected everything in the electric vehicle industry. I mean, it made kind of the Prius and made all of the other EVs. Of course, the fact that the California state took off this law to make it so that automakers had to make zero-emission vehicles changed a lot of things, but it's still, the law was implemented because of the impact test car. Meaning that just kind of opened everybody's eyes to the fact that an electric vehicle had a place in the world, because still 1,117 units were sold, leased, and were active and did fine. Okay, now this is like the super cool and interesting thing that I love the most. Yeah.
This is just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Why they didn't sell the car and no warranty? You know?
So okay, so they were offered. So GM, a lot of people actually offered to buy the cars. They even offered to like have lawyers and sign off that GM would not be like in any way responsible for whatever happened to the car. But GM said no to all of that. Even some people send them checks for deposit to buy the car, and they resend the checks. GM was like, I don't know, we're like cleaning our dark history, which is like our EV history, and we're just going to crush everything and we're going to start over. So they were offered, but they said no. And they even said that they would sue the people who decided to keep them. They would
sue them to try to keep them?
No, some people wanted to, but then GM said they would sue them back. So they didn't do it. So that's what happened. Okay, the biggest bridge ever, and why we have like literally Tesla right now. You know that some of the guys or girls, I don't know, that worked on the actual impact and the EV1, that team, well, they're the guys that develop, guys, girl, transgender, whatever, the AC propulsion and electric drivetrain. And that is what is found in the very first Tesla model, so the Roadster, meaning that some of that technology kind of really stayed, and without that technology we would maybe never have had the Tesla Roadster. So not all of it was for nothing, even though they crashed the EV1s, like crushed them and destroyed them and did not want nobody to have them. Still, this technology it was used to make the Tesla Roadster. Whoa, how cool is that? And, well, GM did start a new car later, and that was the Chevy Volt. So I guess they wanted to, get back into it and test the market again. But some of the same problems arose with the Chevy Volt. Some of them being that it wasn't popular enough. And I also heard that they were losing a lot of money with this car, which was amazing because I had two. I had the 2 models, the first model and the second model, and it was great. We still have 2 minutes.
GM should have been Tesla.
GM should have been Tesla. GM could have been Tesla. The CEO made wrong choices. It's always like that. The wrong choices were made.
first.
And even before he retired, he said that that was one of his biggest regrets, to have literally kind of dismantled the whole EV thing. And the problem with GM is that they always go back to gasoline. So even after the EV1, they decided to go back to these more family sedan cars. And even after the Chevy Volt, well, they decided to go back to Chevy pickup trucks. So just to put more money in that. That's what happened.
Sad.
That is sad.
Could have been Tesla.
They should have been Tesla. And they could have been Tesla, but they weren't. Why? Because they pulled the plug too early. Maybe that's why. I don't know. What do you think? Tell us in a comment. Tell us what happened to you and like what do you think? I mean, some of us were definitely too young to actually see the EV1, but you can always go at the Smithsonian to see one if you want to.
A lot of people run out of gas.
A lot of people run out of gas. Have you ever ran out of gas? 61% have run out of gas.
Did you run out of gas?
I never ran out of gas. Of course not.
I did.
I'm too anxious for that. I have gas range anxiety. I mean, then of course I'm not going to run out of battery or gas. I'm a range anxiety person with gasoline. So getting an electric car for me was nothing different. I'm already broken. Yeah, it's feeling anxiety. Same. But 61% of people have, so I guess I'm part of the very slim 38%. All right, you have the dad joke?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear the dad joke. Let's hear the dad joke. We are ready for this. Are you ready to rumble?
Car always tired.
Okay, why was the car always tired?
He never took any breaks.
He never took any breaks. Oh my God. All gas, no brakes. That's how we like to do it on While You Wait, the podcast that brings you EV entertainment and sometimes super interesting information. We even go back in the past. Not back to the future, but that's a bit what happened with the EV1. Make sure you share this podcast on your social media with Facebook. Yeah, super easy to share over there. We'll be waiting for you in the next one because we broadcast live from Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. All right. Have a good one. And don't forget to eat, right? Recharge yourself and your battery. I love the sound of that. And that's why we're there at lunch break.